record, and you can start whenever you're ready.
Wow, so excited. Thank you for having me. So, I'm
Yes.
Princess Moon. I'm a Cambodian American poet, storyteller, author, illustrator, educator, mother, daughter, and just maker of all things cute. That's what I do.
I love that intro. All right. We like to start our interviews with the first question. Are you hood grown? And if so, how does that influence your aesthetic?
So I definitely am hood grown. I was born in Long Beach, California, where my parents settled from the genocide.
Mm-hmm.
But we moved to Lowell, Mass, and that's where I grew up. So I'm from two cities that are filled with Cambodian culture, especially Cambodian refugees like my parents. And I grew up with a lot of kids who had the same experiences as me. We come from lineage of warriors and survivors. So that influenced my work a lot.
Amazing. I mean, like when I grew up, I had one Cambodian friend in my class in elementary school, and I remember learning so much about the genocide. And he had a restaurant, and JP, his family did, so like we ate a lot of the food, and I got into the culture. So Cambodian culture, like I feel it,
Yes.
I'm into it. I love the art, so dope.
Yes.
Before we get into talking about your art, just because we're in a very tumultuous time right now, all this stuff is happening to us. How are you feeling? How are you coping? How are you caring for yourself during these crazy times?
Well, first of all, thank you for asking because, wow, it's a wild time right now. Since most of my work is going into schools and working with youth, like I get to work with a bunch of cool artists and cool kids all the time. But since COVID hit, I don't get to do any of that. And at the beginning of all this COVID madness, I actually tested positive for COVID in May. So I had to isolate by myself because my son and my boyfriend didn't have COVID either. Like their immune system, I don't know what's going on with them, but I had it. So I was just alone for 14 days. And before I had like my little family, I was so used to doing things on my own. But having a son that I care for like every day and just being at home with him every day, that was just so hard. But I was really depressed at the beginning and it was a really hard time for me. But I ended up taking the time to just like figure out who I am. And I've never had like the time to do that in like 3 years. And I really learned that like I like to take things slow, and I think that I've been living like such a rushed life for so long, and it feels good to just slow down. And I'm resting a lot, still like forcing myself not to feel guilty about taking breaks, and like learning that my productivity is not my worth and all those important things. So yeah, now I'm just like making sure I'm getting enough sleep, and if I'm tired, I'll just lay down, and like if I want to watch Netflix, I'll do it. Like I've been eating a lot, cooking a lot. I feel like really good just like listening to my body.
Nice. Yeah, it's always nice when we are like forced into rest and then you kind of like, wait a minute, I should have been doing this the whole time. It shouldn't
Right.
be a virus that forces me to like relax my
Yeah.
body, but it's great you came out of it in like a very serene way and taking care of yourself. That's awesome. So you mentioned your teaching. How would you describe your pedagogy? How did you get into teaching, and how does teaching inform your artistry?
So I got into teaching because when I was let me start from middle school, like eighth grade, I had this substitute teacher. His name's Phoebo, like everyone knows him
Yeah.
in the community. So he was my substitute teacher, and one day he was like, do you guys want to hear a poem? We're like, yeah, sure, why not? We don't want to do math. So he did a spoken word piece, and we're like, wow, like that was amazing. Like you wrote that, like you choreographed that. We're like 11. And then he founded Freeverse, the youth organization in Lowell that does a lot of poetry after school work with youth. And in high school, I saw him again because he was doing outreach at my high school. Like whenever it was the end of the day, there would be all these youth workers that would come and hang out like outside. It's like, hey,
Cool.
do you want to go do our program? Like, do you want to dance? Do you want to write poetry instead of like, joining a gang or like, so he recruited me to join Freeverse and just like start writing. And I was really shy about it. So I didn't. I was just like, yeah, I'll be there, but
Yeah,
I
sure.
didn't join. Yeah, I was like, yeah, let's do it. And then I just like never showed up for like 2 years, but I would still be writing. So I was like really shy, but I
Mm.
was writing, and finally I showed up one day, and I met like other kids at my school who love poetry, and ended up slamming for the team and went to San Francisco for Brave New Voices, and that just changed my life at like 17. And when I came back, I was like, wow, like this is something I want to do. Like I want to be FIBO. Like I want to change someone's life, like
Mhm.
that's just like it really changed my life.
Mhm.
Um and that's how I saw, like my purpose. I'm like I that feeling of like landing back at Logan Airport after like the best night of my life, performing in front of 3,000 people. I was like, how can I get that high again? It was a high. So I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna keep slamming until I aged out at like 20, which
Mhm.
is like that sucks. It's like not even that old,
Yeah, it's not.
and I ended up taking FIBO's place. So I ended up being the mentor, and I had my own like little Princess Moons, and like working with kids to slam on a team, and they ended up winning, and then I won an award, and I was like, wow, this is like I meant to do this. Like this is lit. This is who I am. So I started just teaching like with Mass Leap and Mass Poetry. And I'm still one of the resident teaching artists today. So get to pop into schools here and there.
That's awesome. Yeah, we interviewed Fibo for Adobo and Fish Sauce so way back when. So it's really dope when
Yeah.
these kind of like intertwined things happen. This art
Yeah.
community in Massachusetts is so small that like the way that we
Mhm.
overlap and like teach each other and it inspire you to go on to teach, which I think that is like the best thing ever. I feel like every teacher has that one teacher that inspires them to go, oh, this is for
Definitely.
me. So I definitely had those moments too. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so would you say there's a connection between your poetry and your illustration work? And has motherhood impacted one medium more than the other?
That's a good question. So, I didn't consider myself an illustrator or like a graphic designer or like a visual artist in general until my son was maybe like turning 2 years old.
Mm.
Um, I always loved to like, I took like some art classes in college, and that was fun. I dropped out of college, but like the art classes were like really fun
Mm-hmm.
for me, and that was kind of like the only reason why I would stay in school. But I never thought that I was like that creative visually or like that. Like I didn't know my work would make an impact as much as my poetry does.
Mm.
And my poetry is just something I've been working on for years. Like I started writing when I was 11 when I saw FIBO, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm 26 now, so that's something that I'm known for, and like I'm really proud of. But when I started my project, Let Me Write You a Poem, um, I think that's what started my like linking imagery with my words. Because how that started was I would ask people to send me a photo, and tell me a little story, a background about it, and then I would write a poem about it. And then the more I started doing that sort of connecting artwork, I started to have my own ideas like, oh, like this poem would look really good if it had this visual. And
Mhm.
yeah, so that's the beginning of it. But eventually, as Ezra got older and he started to see like show an interest in my visual art and like the colors that I use and just like drawing things to help teach him like how to speak, because he's developmentally delayed, so he's speech delayed, and I would start drawing pictures and adding words to it, teach him how to talk. And I was like, huh, like I'm pretty good at this too. Like
Mhm.
I like this too. So now my main focus right now is visual art and illustration because of Ezra.
That's so cool that your son is like inspiring you to like pick up a whole new like way of making.
Yeah.
Um, so you have a new project that's set to drop in September called Tiny Trophy Shop. Can you
Yes.
tell us about this project? And I believe Ezra has some inspiration props in this too. He should get some credit as well.
Yes. So Tiny Trophy Shop, our little slogan is tiny trophies for tiny hands. Do you want to say hi? He knows I'm talking about him.
Hi,
Say
bud.
hi. So
You're of great
tiny,
inspiration,
yeah,
my
good
friend.
job. Yeah, so Ezra, when he had his bowl cut, his seasonal bowl cut, he's our little mascot, our logo, like the motive behind the brand. And it all started when I started my little fruit series. I
Hmm.
started with like this little orange that I drew, and everyone was like, that reminds me of Ezra. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. It really does remind me of him because it had his little face, like just a
Hmm.
small little smile. And when I drew that, Ezra was like, orange. And I'm like, wow, you can say orange now. Like, let
That's
me
a
draw
tough
more of the
word.
fruit.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
you did so great. So I started to draw more fruit, and like each fruit that I drew, he would be able to say like the name of the fruit. And I'm like, hey, but what color is this? And it's like,
Mhm.
yellow banana. And I was like, wow, this is like, this could be something like I could use my art to help other parents
Mm.
who go through like our same experience of like just teaching young ones, how to connect images to words.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I decided to make a shop out of it. At first, it was, you feeding me? Thank you. It's ASMR now. So, thank you. So, at first, you can eat it. You eat it. Is it pink? Pink and crunchy? You don't want it? Okay, let's
Hot
put it back.
take.
So, he's eating Yan Yans, the
Mm.
childhood snack.
Hmm.
And actually the logo that I designed of him has like a little like reminiscent nod to nostalgia, and like the colors make you think of like your old childhood snacks,
Hmm.
or like QP mayo, like all those cute stuff.
Hmm.
But anyways, so the shop was originally supposed to be like a way for people to buy my prints, and it was like mainly adults, not necessarily adults that have children.
Hmm.
um but I just didn't have like a way to sell my prints online, especially during COVID. And then I started thinking, well, if this is like actually teaching Ezra how to name things, let me just like come up with more stuff. So I created like this alphabet poster for him, and that was a hit. So
Hmm.
creating more themes for that. And yeah, and I've been thinking of doing like flashcards, or even like different charts that have like emotions, and they can like point to their emotions on the
That's
chart. And
cool.
just getting into like, since I can't teach the youth that I usually do, like the high
Mhm.
school age. This is like a new thing for me, teaching babies and like toddlers, and it's
Mhm.
something that's natural for me because I'm a mother too.
That's awesome. And I think this would be a great project for, teachers to start buying these and putting them in their classroom. I know I've worked with many kids of many different abilities, from, nonverbal to, just being autistic, Down syndrome, all sorts of kids and all sorts of spectrums. And I think that a lot of kids can benefit from just, visual aids. They do so much for so
Mhm.
many kids. So that's really cool.
Thank
Um,
you.
can you talk about your collaboration with Angry Asian Girls,
Um,
from logo design to tour graphics? I had the pleasure of speaking to those folks, and I really would love to hear your part of Angry Asian Girls.
oh yeah, that was a fun summer. I wasn't on for like that long, but that was like working with my friends. That was really fun. And it was my first time working as like a social media manager and all of
Mhm.
that. And like I always love social media and like making like fun visuals for Instagram and things like that. But once I did it for Angry Asian Girls, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like real. Like they actually have like an audience, and like people are, like they're looking forward to our work online since it's an online campaign basically.
Mhm.
So I was really grateful to work with them. They actually I guess I still have imposter syndrome. But they were like, no, like you should totally like do it. And I'm like, okay, I'll try. But I didn't even know how to use like Photoshop or Illustrator or any of the fancy apps or even Procreate like I use today. Which like I've taught myself over the years how to use these programs, but when I first started out, I was using Google Slides and I was doing everything on Google Slides, and I was like, it's free, like there's different shapes you can use and like different line options. So I would use like a curved line and like draw things like dot by dot and like yeah. So that's the start of my graphic design career and illustrating career.
That's awesome that you're able, like, to one, teach yourself how to use slides in that way. Like, I can barely, like, I could put together a good presentation for my students, but to make an image through it, I've never even attempted. So I think that's impressive. A MacGyver skill, working with what you got. I think that's.
Exactly. So that's definitely part of my hood grown aesthetic,
Mhm.
definitely. So yeah, I'm glad to talk about it. And I always like to tell like younger artists, like you don't need these fancy programs. Like I'll
Mhm.
teach you like the tools on Google Slides, and then you've got a free program and you can make money from it. So my fruit series, they're all drawn from Google Slides as well.
Really? I'm like, how? I just don't understand.
I'll teach you. I'll
Yeah,
show you.
I need to
It's a
know.
free program. Yeah. But going back to how that's part of my hood grown aesthetic is that like I'm really good at making something out of nothing or
Mm,
making a lot out of nothing because like all I've known is nothing,
right.
and just like it's part of like the survivor and like also scavenging mindset that's just like in my bloodline. It's just
Mm.
like be innovative.
Do anything
Like
you gotta do.
yeah, we're just programmed differently to
Hmm.
survive, and most of the time it benefits us.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I've also noticed, just like doing my research, going on your really amazingly designed website. I
Oh,
don't think you could
thank
do that on
you.
Google Slides. I don't know what you can possibly do on Google Slides now. But I also noticed you have this like great little YouTube channel. I was checking out some of your videos, and
Oh,
it seems like your YouTube is like a vlog or even like an artist video diary kind of series you
yes,
got going on. Do you see video art as a medium that you may want to dive into?
definitely. I really want to. Oh. Especially yeah, just from my YouTube, it's like just like drawing my little images. Those weren't Google Slides. It was Procreate, but that's because like I got the $5 to buy Procreate now. So yeah, just like drawing the little characters in like some of my videos is just really fun for me, and like I really like working with you're so noisy. Making his presence known. I really like piecing together like music with imagery, and just like I miss so back then I used to be more like performative in my poetry and do like the whole choreography and just like be really excited about like group pieces, and like you say this at this time and I'm gonna say this and we'll say this at the same time. It's just like something that I miss about that, just like different messing with volumes and sounds and imagery. Like I really like video art, and yeah, I think that'll be my next thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah. Oh,
what?
okay. Okay.
You're all talking now.
Go ahead, Ezra.
Talking a lot.
I'm
Good
not sure
talker.
what he said, but he just, he's saying hi.
That's awesome.
Funny.
So in a broader sense, what's next for your work beyond just exploring video work? Do you have anything new beyond Tiny Trophies? How is that going to roll out? When are we going to see that happen? All that.
So some new things that I'm teaching myself to do is clothing. Clothing art, can I say that? So figuring out how to incorporate my little illustrations onto tiny human clothes.
Oh,
so that's gonna be a part of Tiny Trophy Shop. I don't think it'll be like right off the bat, but probably like in the winter. So like this winter I'll release something, thinking about like bucket hats for tiny humans, and just like really inspired by how I dress Ezra, because apparently Ezra's like a style icon to
no,
many
he really
people,
is.
so.
He really is. Whenever you post him on your Instagram, I'm like, damn, this kid is stylish. He got it.
Thank you. I'm his stylist, so.
So take all the credit. Oh, that's cool. I can't wait to see that clothing line drop. That's awesome.
Thank
you.
You.
Lastly, thank you so much for speaking to me. It was so great to talk to you in this like kind of formalish way. I know we met months back, but it's good to finally talk about your work. Where can the people find your work? What's your website, Instas, all that? We'll have it all in the show notes, but if you want to say it too.
All right, you can find me on Instagram at Softest Glow. I describe it as a soft glow, but the most softest glow. That's me. My YouTube, my website byprincessmoon.com has all the links to all of my other links. Ezra wants me to wear these sunglasses right now, so he's styling me. He's styling me. Yeah, you can find me mostly on those platforms, and yeah.
Awesome.
And at home and in my studio. I'm antisocial, but I just need a little. Oh, okay. You don't want me to be social? We gotta be social.
That's who you're social with, your family.
Yeah, so I'm social with Ezra. Also, we just made over our studio down in Lowell, so once COVID calms down in like 5 years, everyone's invited.
You have a studio opening. That's super cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking with me. I appreciate you taking so much of your time for me, and I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday.
Wow, no, I'm honored to be here, and this is a
your
great
work
way
is
to
awesome.
spend my Sunday. So thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
And Ezra.
Oh yeah, he was a great addition to the interview. I think he added a lot, so I appreciate him.
Yay!